to run, ain't no place to hide, ain't nobody safe anymore. Ooh, eyes can't count the shine of gold, can't follow the stories told, ain't no shelter anymore. Ooh, eyes, ooh, eyes, ooh. Ain't no time to run, ain't no place to hide, ain't nobody safe anymore. Ooh, eyes can't count the shine of gold, can't follow the stories told, ain't no shelter anymore. Ooh, eyes, ooh, eyes, ooh. Show 'em you ain't dead, tell 'em that you ain't coming home. Ooh, eyes, ooh, eyes, ooh, ain't no time to run, ain't no place to hide, ain't nobody safe anymore. Ooh, eyes can't count the shine of gold, can't follow the stories told, ain't no shelter anymore. Ooh, eyes, ooh, eyes, ooh. Ain't no time to run, ain't no place to hide, ain't nobody safe anymore. Ooh, eyes can't count the shine of gold, can't follow the stories told, ain't no shelter anymore. Ooh, eyes, ooh, eyes, ooh. Show 'em you ain't dead, tell 'em that you ain't coming home. Ooh.
Hey guys, and welcome into the live stream. Sorry, I know I'm a couple minutes late, but I was trying to make sure that everything was ready, set, and able to go. I am looking forward to tonight and having a realistic conversation. As a professional songwriter, I've been talking to a lot of my colleagues, a lot of people that I write with, a lot of publishing companies. I had a great conversation with Shannon Hatch at SESAC this morning. And I know some of my other friends. Let me get this out there first and foremost. I am a SESAC writer. I am affiliated with SESAC. I was with BMI for 15 years. And I left BMI for very good reasons, and I went to SESAC for very good reasons. I have been talking to a lot of songwriters, even SESAC songwriters, that are contacting SESAC. I mean, we're all seeing the stuff that's getting put out there by NSAI and by other publishing companies, other PROs that are blaming SESAC for what they're calling this last-minute effort to derail the MMA, the Music Modernization Act. For those of you that know me, you know that I just have this realistic and real approach to everything, and especially this, because it is absolutely 100% my business. And I think it's important. This is an important time in our history that we actually be able to update these laws. They haven't been changed in years, years and years, decades. The one thing that we can all agree on, no matter how much we tend to disagree or agree with what SESAC is doing or the bill that is in its current form right now, the one thing that we can all agree on as creators and songwriters is that it's not enough. The pay is not enough. You know, I want to get into several areas tonight, even down to publishing companies and what they're paying new songwriters. I keep seeing Bart Herbson at NSAI and all these people talk about the profession of songwriting not being viable in the future if this act doesn't pass. Guys, it's not freaking viable right now. The new bill has nothing to do with that. You've got publishers out here offering talented new songwriters $1,200 a month. Yeah. Who can live on that? I can't live on that. That's absolutely ridiculous. So I want to get into that. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the bill. I've got some things I want to show you as well. I also look right down there. Everything's backwards on my screen over here. But right there. If you want to call into the show tonight, if you've got an opinion, or you want to ask a question, you can do that. All you have to do is call 615-290-5584. It's through Skype. But I am also one of these people that I am open to hearing other opinions. And I want to know what you guys think about it. Because, see, I think this bill is not the end-all. Everybody involved, the one phrase that keeps going on and around this whole thing is that it is an imperfect piece of legislation. No matter what I've read, whether it be Rolling Stone, Billboard, or what I've heard come out of NSAI, or BMI, ASCAP, SESAC, any of them, the one thing everybody agrees on is that it is imperfect legislation. So here's my thought. I think we deserve better. I mean, do you? I understand that it is a step forward, but it is not a giant leap into what needs to happen. And I, for one, am not going to be satisfied with a step forward. I was talking to somebody earlier today, And I told them that my concern, yes, am I excited that we are trying to do something? Absolutely. But guys, here's what you need to understand. When, in whatever form, that this bill passes, it's going to be off the table for songwriters for another 8 decades. We are not going to be able to go back to legislators and say, okay, we all admit we made a small step forward. Now it's time to take another step. I'm telling you right now, we are talking about our government, people. It moves slower than a turtle, and nobody can agree on anything. This is our opportunity. If we want to bring music rights ownership and royalties and get them in line with the modern era, this is our shot. If we don't get it now, we're going to have to be happy with whatever they do, because we're not going to be able to revisit the situation. We're not going to be able to go back and ask for more. This will be it, because the answer we'll get if we do that is we just did something in 2018. We just updated it after years and years and years and decades. So we are going to be stuck with whatever it is that we get. I could talk about whether or not I agree with SESAC or whether I don't agree with SESAC, or I agree with NSAI or don't agree with NSAI. But the one thing that I can agree with is that we don't just deserve a small step forward or quote unquote imperfect legislation. We are creators. We are the backbone of the entertainment industry. I think we deserve the right legislation. Not just a step forward, not just a step in the right direction. So many of the comments, speaking of comments, everybody that's watching, if you don't want to call in, but you want to ask a question and leave a comment, all you have to do is drop it in the chat section, and it pops right up here in front of me, and I can read it, and I can answer your questions, or I can read your comment. I also want to make sure that everybody understands. Tonight is not about me spreading my belief. I have been on social media the last few weeks, and guys, we have enough that divides us, whether it's politics, religion, morality. We have so much stuff that divides us that I would like to see us as a songwriting community, a professional songwriting community, come together. I'm going to say some things tonight that are probably going to anger lots of people. I have a tendency to say a lot of things that anger a lot of people. But most of the time, they're truthful, and the truth hurts. But I've been seeing on social media so many people getting really angry, so many songwriters getting really angry over this whole situation and fighting. I mean, it's almost like it took me back to the election. In all honesty, that's what keeps coming to my mind is you've almost got Trump people and Hillary people, and that's what it's turning into. And that's okay, because it's serious. We are talking about our livelihood. It is that serious. So that's what I want to do tonight. Billboard has had some articles on this that I thought were interesting. Rolling Stone has had some articles on this that are interesting. And there's been some news stories on it as well that I want to share some of those with you at all. What I do find interesting is no matter how much I read on this, I have yet to see or hear anyone involved tell me or explain to me in detail, with detailed numbers, of how much I can expect my royalty check to go up. How much more money are we going to get per stream? Because nobody knows. That's what the collective is all about. That's where the SESAC thing comes in. They want to form this collective that then goes and negotiates. So this legislation does nothing more than give a collective that's made up of songwriters, publishers, and collection agency. All these people are going to make up this collective. They're going to go and they're going to negotiate. Well, that's great. But you're asking me to support legislation and support an idea without giving me any specifics. And if there's anybody watching or anybody listening that has those specifics, I would love to see them because, and I don't think that they are there. I'm getting messages from people on Facebook and everything. I'll get to some of those too. I don't think it's fair to ask for support without giving specifics. Yes, it is a step forward. And one of the things that I want to take a look at is not necessarily my view on this, but is an article that was in Rolling Stone called "The Music Modernization Act is One Step Closer to Fixing Music Copyright." And I'm actually gonna pull this up here so you guys can see it. And some of the things that they say in here are amazing. It gives a broad overview. But here again, we're talking broad overviews. We're not talking specifics. I'm just going to read some of this. You can follow along. The Act, a bundle of legislation that chiefly updates licensing and royalty rules for the streaming era, gives royalties to songwriters and artists on songs recorded before 1972, and awards new rights to music producers and mixers. It's barreled through Congress in the last few months under the MMA. Digital distribution services like Apple Music and Spotify would essentially come together with publishers to manage licenses in a more streamlined process. Now, that's it in a nutshell. If you want to try to unbox that can of worms, go right ahead. Do you see what I'm saying? It's very general. They're asking for specifics, but being very general. Here's my fear. That if you can't tell me how much more, right now, if you can't tell me that if this bill passes, that I'm going to get 32 cents more per stream from Spotify, Apple Music, and any of the other streaming platforms. If you can't tell me that my royalties are going up in a specific amount, then why are you're not helping me? You're not helping me. I was telling somebody the other day, what we're facing and what we're looking at is truly a subject and a matter of pennies. I see all these people arguing on social media about how much better it's going to be for songwriters. That's great as a blanket statement. I am all for things being better for songwriters. But how? I have yet to see any specific person or one of these people that is supposedly in the know. I have yet to have one of them explain to me in detail, as a matter of fact, how exactly is this going to make my life better. And guys, this is where the truth comes in. I don't care about representation. I don't care about any of that. What I care about are the checks that come to that mailbox right out there that have SESAC at the top of them. And unless that check is going to be bigger, I don't give a damn about the changes. And I'm even going to go one step further. It's great that this new bill, it's going to give rights and royalties to stuff that was pre-1972. I was born in 1977. Okay? If you have recorded music before 1972, then you go fight on that your own. I don't give a damn. I don't. I'm out for me and my family. But I'm also out for the collective songwriters in general. And I don't think that this new modern, because it's not. Here's my thing is that, yes, it's been a long time, it's been decades since it was changed and since anything's been done, but this bill is far from bringing the music business and the publishing side and the songwriter royalties, it is far from bringing it into the modern era. Like I said, unless we are going to see the paychecks for songwriters increase dramatically, I don't understand how this is even a step forward. So you're going to create a collective, and this collective is going to go negotiate on behalf of us songwriters. For what? What rates are you talking about? I would like to see that. We want to go to Apple Music. We want to go to Spotify. And we want to get this per stream. We want to get this rate. Nobody said that. Nobody has, that I have seen. I've read all the articles. I have got the 169-page entire Music Modernization Act. I have it. It will put you to sleep trying to read it. And if you thought you couldn't understand publishing before, try actually reading the whole thing. It will put you to sleep. It's like any other government legislation, bureaucracy. It feels to me like this is one of those things where just trust us. It's going to be great for you. We promise we have your best interest at heart. This is going to be great for you. That's wonderful, again, as a blanket statement to say. But give me specifics. And nothing that I've read at all, including the act itself, the legislation, gives anything specific. There are a lot of generalizations. There's a lot of broad brush painting. And I'm convinced, look, I also want to say that I don't think that Bart Herbson or Lee Thomas Miller or anybody at BMI or anybody at ASCAP, I don't think that they are anti-songwriter. These guys have at least Bart, I know for a fact, has spent his life fighting in Congress, through legislation, through everything that he's done, fights for songwriters. I get that. I understand that. But you also have to understand that with me attacking this, I'm not attacking Bart Herbson. That's the other thing we've got to get past. I don't agree with everything that Lee has said or that Lee has put out there. There's been a lot of misinformation that is put out there, and people are retweeting it, requoting it, reposting it as if it's fact when they don't know. If you want to know what is in the proposed amendment from SESAC, you can go read it. You can literally pull it up and read it. You don't have to take somebody else's word for it. You can go read it. I was on a Facebook post today on David Lee's page. And he very honestly said, look, I've got friends on both sides of this fight. I don't know which one's right. I don't know which one's wrong. And somebody was commenting saying that, well, what SESAC is trying to do is have a monopoly on the collections. Their bill says that they want the Harry Fox Agency, which SESAC owns or is owned by Blackstone, the parent company of both Harry Fox and SESAC. His comment said that their bill says that Harry Fox should be the only person to collect any of the royalties. And people agreeing with it and liking it, and yeah, that's true. That is absolutely not what it says. That is actually the opposite of what the bill says. So look, I'm all for healthy discussion. I'm up for healthy debate. But know your facts. Don't just get on somebody's page and post a comment because you like the person that posted the original post and you want to look like you're supporting them. You can't do that in situations like this. This bill, this legislation, the information contained in it, and what could happen for songwriters for the next 80 years is too important for you to get on there and basically be kissing somebody's ass. Okay? That's what it is. And I read that comment, and I left a comment as well, and I'm like, that couldn't be further from the truth. The SESAC bill, or the amendment to the legislation, is all about free market. Under the current bill, there will be a collective of, and I always love, there will be a collective of songwriters, publishers, and all these other people. Okay, well, if I'm not on that frickin' thing, then it's not made up of songwriters. I know that's a harsh way to look at things, but it is. If I'm not on the collective and I'm not sitting there, then I'm not representing me. My worry is that this, like I said before, that this collective represents the body of songwriters about as well as our congressmen and senators and things like that, because that's what it's going to turn into. You're going to give these people a little bit of power. And whenever, name me one time in history whenever we have appointed a collective and that collective has actually acted on behalf of the greater good of the people they represent. These guys are going to get up there to Washington. It's all going to be about lobbyists and everything else. If you think it's going to be different than the way that it is now, it's not. It's just because you can't add all those ingredients together, and all those things add up to critical change. That's what I'm saying. You've got to know the facts. The SESAC amendment is about free market. Okay. Now, through the last couple of weeks, when all this is coming out, or Friday at least, all of a sudden, it is a negative thing now in the United States of America to be for profit. Okay? I'm for profit. I like profit. I like profit a lot. My mortgage company likes profit. NES likes profit. They like me to profit. The people who my bank loves profit. Anybody out there that's a songwriter should love profit and shouldn't find anything wrong with profit. SESAC is a for-profit organization. Yes, they own Harry Fox. Yes, they are concerned about one of their major entities that already collects a majority of the mechanical licensing for songwriters and publishing companies everywhere. They already do this. They are worried that should the bill pass, the legislation pass, the way that it is right now, that Harry Fox will not be one of the chosen collectors. Guys, that's business 101. I see people posting on social media, they're just looking out for their best interest. And why shouldn't they? I mean, did anybody watching today, did anybody get up out of bed this morning and think, okay, how can I better the lives of this guy over here or this girl over here? No. We all get out of bed every day and we look in the mirror and we go, how can I make my life better? How can I make the lives of my kids better and my wife better and my family better? How can I provide myself a better quality of life? Okay, that's what Blackstone is doing. Now, I know that it's easy for everybody to vilify a large company and that you can say they're just out for profit, they don't care about the little guy. I just don't buy into that. Are there some of those? Absolutely, but I don't think that it is this situation. I think you have to read the legislation. I think you have to read SESAC's proposed amendment to the legislation to actually understand what they want. And don't just take my word for it. Read it. I remember going to church. One of the best things my pastor ever told me, and he told the congregation, don't believe the words coming out of my mouth. You've got a reference manual. Go read it for yourself. That's what I'm encouraging people to do. Educate yourself and inform yourself. Know what the facts are, not what people are saying. Because what's going on right now is that thing that little practice and exercise that you used to do in elementary school, where you were all sitting in a circle in chairs, and somebody would whisper something into somebody's ear, and by the time it got back around to that person, it was a completely different story. That is what's going on right now. No offense, but 95% of you guys making comments have no freaking clue what you're talking about. You don't. Because mostly, and for the most part, it's impossible to understand. I like breaking it down to simple things. Simple things like, you haven't yet told me that if this passes, how much my check's going to increase. You've told me that it gives you the power to start a collective and that collective can negotiate. What do you want to negotiate? You tell me that this collective is going to be made up of a panel of my peers. That kind of scares me, to be truthful with you. I'm just saying, unless I'm sitting on the panel, I'm not looking out for me. There are too many issues. It's been called imperfect legislation as it stands without the SESAC proposed amendment. I think as songwriters, we deserve better. I think we deserve to get paid more when an artist chooses to cut our song and they put it out on Spotify and they put it out all these other places, and it gets millions and millions and millions and millions of streams, and you get that check in the mail, and it's really hard to be excited and passionate about what you do anymore. Because, guys, in all reality, I talk to new artists, songwriters, publishers. I talk to these people every day, and I work with them every day. The money is one thing, but what comes attached to that money is the passion. We are losing passionate people. We are losing that fact that you can be a professional songwriter and it is appreciated, it's valued, and that value is expressed in financial terms. And I hear people have told me, it's just, you guys, it's just all about the money with you guys. It is. It really is. Go to your job and work for free for a month, for a year, for 2 years. And unless you've been fortunate to have major cuts and things like that, if you are new getting into the business, these publishing companies aren't paying these new writers anything. Nothing. So you get to keep your writer side. Great. It's worth nothing. The fact of the matter is it's still going to be worth nothing after this bill passes. Because, like I said, everybody has called it imperfect legislation. Because it is. I think we deserve perfect legislation. I know nothing can be perfect, but I do know that we can get a lot closer to perfect than we are right now. And I think that if you are in this fight for songwriters, that just a small step forward isn't good enough for you. I'd like to see you fight for the betterment of everybody, because we are going to get stuck with this legislation. When it passes, with or without the SESAC amendment, we're going to get stuck with it. And then we are beholden to the collective to hopefully negotiate better rates. No promise that they will. There's no guarantee. There's nothing in the bill that says Apple Music and Spotify have to pay a certain amount. Just that they negotiate. One of my arguments that I said something to Shannon at SESAC about this morning is that it bothers me and it troubles me anytime, especially with this legislation, when I hear that all of the streaming companies are 100% on board. That scares me. Honest to God, that scares me, because what that tells me is they feel comfortable enough with whoever of our peers is elected, or however that process is going to go, to be selected to set in and make up this collective. They are comfortable enough at their ability to deal with that collective and still strike deals that are more favorable to them than they are the songwriters, then they wouldn't be for the bill. They don't want to give up any more money than they absolutely have to. So when you tell me, you don't use that argument to me that, well, all the streaming companies are on board with it. That tells me that they are confident, the streaming companies are confident enough that whatever deals will be struck with the collective, that they won't impact them and their bottom line so much that they can go along with it. Or that impact is going to be felt enough by the streaming companies to in turn trickle down and impact us, the songwriters. If they're on board with it, there's a problem. I would feel a lot more confident about this legislation where it stands right now, either with the SESAC amendment or without it, if all of the streaming companies were 100% against it. That would make me feel great about the legislation, because that would tell me that the legislation and the bill itself is going to impact the streaming companies enough that it will actually affect me. And it will affect other songwriters. But it's not. All we get are these general things It's going to be great for you. And we'll go over some of that. One of the things that I want to show you now is a news. Some of you may have seen it. It's a news story that ran on Channel 5 here in Nashville. I will say it's kind of a one-sided argument. I would have liked for this segment to be twice as long so that you got both sides, both sides of the story, but it's not. But I thought it is exactly what we're talking about, and I want you to hear their argument. So I'm going to play this real quick, and then maybe we can get to some questions and answers or phone calls or anything like that. But take a listen to this and see what you think for yourself.
SESAC is a group that's supposed to support songwriters, but many say they're doing the exact opposite by proposing an amendment that could kill the Music Modernization Act. News Channel 5's Jesse Knutson reports many believe corporate greed is getting in the way of updating antiquated laws.
It's a complex topic, music licensing. But after years of working together, music licensing groups, streaming organizations, and performing rights organizations got together on the Music Modernization Act, which will help songwriters in the end. Everyone was in agreement until the owners of SESAC proposed an amendment at the last minute.
They don't give a damn about American songwriters. They care about corporate pocketbooks.
Bart Herbison has been fighting for songwriters at NSAI for more than 20 years, and he says the Music Modernization Act is the most important piece of legislation for songwriters in decades. It is one vote away from being passed, but the owners of SESAC and the Harry Fox Agency, a rights management service, have proposed an amendment.
Why now at 11:59:59? They want to kill it. They want to greedily ensure some business for Harry Fox. The truth is, it's politics. It's a mega multi-billion-dollar holding company named Blackstone that owns SESAC and Harry Fox that came in with their proposal. It's not the SESAC lobbyists, it's the Blackstone lobbyists. And we have learned they intended to do this all along. They want to kill the bill for greed.
It's a bill that has passed unanimously at every step, but Herbison says this amendment will 100% kill the bill.
The victim is the songwriter, including those they represent.
The proposed amendment would add a step to the new streamlined service and likely bring SESAC's parent company more business.
I've been getting calls left and right from SESAC writers. Is there any chance that they're right? No.
Herbison says if the bill doesn't pass as it was originally agreed upon, songwriters will suffer.
And I'm not even sure that the profession is viable if we can't do things like the Music Modernization Act to make sure they fairly get paid.
And Herbison says SESAC's owners will be to blame.
Their office up here on 16th Avenue will have a shadow over it for decades to come.
In Nashville, Jesse Knutson, News Channel 5.
All right. So I have several things about it. I've watched that several times. And I just one of the things that I took out of there that he said was do things like the Music Modernization Act. I don't know if everybody caught that, but it stuck out to me because that right there says that the Music Modernization Act is not going to do it. It's going to take other things like the Music Modernization Act to change things for songwriters. And did y'all pick up on that generalization? It's trust me. That's exactly what this is. It's just trust me. It's going to make things better. Better how? Sure, there are a few things that you can point to. But for the large majority, most of this is a buy now, trust me later. And I just don't, that just is not good enough for me. I think if we finally have all these people at the table and they want to talk and everybody can agree that the legislation needs to improve and that incomes for songwriters need to rise. We all agree on that. We've got everybody around the table. What I don't understand, and I understand it is hard to compromise and everybody's got a different angle, but what I don't understand is why we can't put specifics in this legislation. If you say that you're going to help me, tell me exactly how it is that you're going to help me. Don't just tell me that it's going to be better. Because for me, that is just not good enough. Also, in another article from Billboard, they sum it up by saying this: the Music Modernization Act, or MMA, creates a formalized body run by publishers that administer the mechanical licensing of compositions streamed on services like Spotify, Apple Music, and of course all the others. It changes the procedure by which millions of songs are made available for streaming on these services and limits the liability of a service. The liability a service can incur if it adheres to the new process. It funds the creation of a comprehensive database with buy-in from all the major publishers and digital service providers. It says this would be the first kind that has active participation from the major publishers representing a vast majority of musical works. It also creates new evidentiary standard by which the performing rights organizations ASCAP and BMI can argue better rates for the performance of musical works on digital service providers. I want to back up and I want to read this last sentence again, because if you are confused and you don't know what's going on and you're trying to figure out how the MMA is going to benefit you, it's not. And here's why. Let's read that. I love this last sentence. It also creates a new evidentiary standard by which the performing rights organizations, ASCAP and BMI, can argue better rates for the performance of musical works. Okay. That sentence right there says a whole lot without actually saying much at all. It says that they will have the right to seek better rates for performance of musical works. It creates an evidentiary standard by which the performing rights organizations can argue. They can argue for it, doesn't mean you're going to get it. So if the bill passes, now all of a sudden BMI and ASCAP and SESAC, now they can argue for better rates. Like they haven't before? Like they haven't had that opportunity before? All of a sudden this legislation is going to give them the ability to be able to argue better rates. I've seen nothing from BMI. I've seen nothing from ASCAP about what their argument's going to be. How much of an improvement are you going to ask for? I don't know. You're not telling anybody. So that's kind of where we stand. If you guys, I would love to open the floor up. I mean, I've kind of given my 2 cents. I do want to, in a little bit, I want to go over some things that I think would actually benefit songwriters beyond this legislation. It actually has nothing to do with this legislation. But I do want to talk about some of that as well. But I do want to open the floor to you guys. If anybody watching, if you want to make a comment or you've got a question, or anything like that, feel free to drop it in the chat. I've got the chat open right here. I can see it. I can read it. I don't care what side of it you're on, whether you're on the SESAC side and you're for the legislation or against the legislation, or you have no idea what it even means. I would love to open it up if you guys have any comments. If you want to call in, you can call in 615-290-5584, and we can talk about it. I don't even have to talk. You can just say your piece. I put this all over social media today. I would love for one of these guys, Bart or anybody, that thinks they can give us some specifics of why this is good for us. I feel a lot like we are sitting at the kitchen table and we are 5 years old and we don't want the green beans, and our parents are telling us that just eat it, it's good for you. That's what I feel like. You can't tell me why it's good for me. You're just saying you may not like it and it's imperfect, but it's good for you. Trust us. We're gonna nominate and put together this collective that is going to save the world. That's what we're being told. But on the same side of the token, we're also being told that everybody recognizes that it is an imperfect piece of legislation. So I just don't think that this is going to benefit songwriters. I don't think a small step forward is a big enough step forward to make the difference in anybody's lives. And that's what we need right now. If we're going to do something, I think we should do something that's meaningful. I think if this is our time in the sun, we need to get burnt. I don't understand why even these guys like Bart that are known for fighting for songwriter rights, I don't understand why they are satisfied with a small step forward. And then when you have a company like SESAC, who has a significant business interest involved, why all of a sudden we come out and we vilify them and we make false statements and we make leading assumptions to people without giving people the facts. The SESAC amendment is all about free market. Are they looking out for their interest with Harry Fox? Absolutely they are. But they want it to be a free market for collections, not just whoever this collective decides that we all have to use. I believe in choice. I believe in... Look, as songwriters, we've had enough taken away from us. Okay, we have people steal our songs all the time. We have people using our music and not paying for it. How ironic. I was telling somebody the other day, and it may have even been in the last live stream, I get copyright strikes from YouTube for using my own music. Songs that I've written in my vlogs and things like that, I get copyright strikes. And then I have to email them. I have to file a counter complaint. Then they have to go through, and they ultimately end up getting removed, but it's still there. We have so many areas where things need to change. I'm all for steps forward. But if we've got everybody at the table, I know that everybody's not always going to agree, but while we've got everybody at the table, why don't we focus on trying to make a giant leap forward? I understand that what they may pass may be better than what we're currently living under, but if you think that them passing this legislation is going to have enough of an impact and a severe enough impact that it's going to change the amount of that check that comes to your mailbox, you're wrong. And that's what we should all be concerned about. If we are truly and honestly concerned about preserving the ability to be a professional songwriter and it be a viable career choice for those that have talent. Lord knows right now it's completely viable for people that don't. But that's another vlog, that's another live stream. We can get into that. But if the purpose is to make it possible for people to make a living off of their creations and off of their compositions as songwriters, then I think we deserve more. I think we should be asking for more. I don't think that... I put on David Lee's post a comment, and I said, my opinion of this new legislation is like a cookie to a crying toddler. They're sick of us they're sick of hearing us bitch about it. They're sick of us hearing us talk about it and be frustrated about it. Our Congress people are sick of hearing from songwriters. They're sick of hearing from NSAI. They're sick of hearing from everybody involved. And they're offering us a cookie to shut us up. Because it's just not that much of a step forward. If it were, it would be hurting. Somebody would not be benefiting. And that's how you can always tell if something is real or not, if you stand to benefit or not. Because other than SESAC and a couple other people like Ted Cruz, there's not a lot of opposition to this. And when something doesn't have opposition, it scares me. Because in a world where nobody can agree on everything, there's too much of a compromise being made. And that's what scares me about this legislation. So please, I would love to hear your comments. My idea was not to come on here and for me to talk. But I'd love to hear from you guys. You can call in 615-290-5584. You can leave a comment in the comment section below. That shows up, but also in the chat window. You can ask a question. You can leave a comment. I'd love to know what you guys think. You guys are in this boat with us. And I think we need to be vocal. I think we need to be more vocal. I think we need to be vocal on specifics. And not just, be expected to adapt this philosophy that let's get this passed because it's a small step forward and then trust me. Trust us. I've just never seen that work out. I've never seen that work out to benefit the majority. I just never have. I did say that I wanted to talk about a couple of ideas that I have that actually do impact songwriters' bottom lines. One of them I want to talk about, see how many of you agree with this. Take streaming completely out of the question. That is never going to get to a point where songwriters are paid what we feel like we deserve for streaming. It's just not ever going to happen, ever. If it does, it's going to be way, way, way down the line, and it's not going to matter. How about making all secondary radio stations, small market secondary radio stations, how about passing legislation that states that they have to be monitored the same as the large, medium, and major market radio stations by either BDS or MediaBase? You see, here's what's going on there. If you're a songwriter and an artist cuts your song, and let's say they're releasing it on the Music Row chart, you as a songwriter are never going to see a penny. It can go all the way up. It can get into the top 10, and you're not going to see a penny of it because they're not monitored. They're not accountable for the amount of spins they're spinning these records. And what makes it even worse is that whole charting system with Music Row and secondary radio stations and all that, that is all predicated on the buddy system. There are independent radio promoters out there that independent artists are stupid enough to go out and hire and pay them $3,500 to $8,500 to one guy in town charges $20,000 a month. I'm not lying. It's that bad. But people, these independent artists, the ones that can afford it, they go out and they hire these independent radio promoters. These independent radio promoters have a group of these stations that report to the Music Row charts, which there used to be like 110 of them. Each one of these promoters has a pocket of 20 to 30 of those stations that they're good friends with, they're best friends with. They're going to play anything they send them. So then they play them. They send it to them. Then they start playing them. They may be playing them one time a week. But to help the independent radio promoter and to help that single go further up the charts, the radio stations inflate their spin counts. So in all reality, they may be playing this record 5 times a week. But they're reporting to Music Row they're playing it 47 times a week. And guess how many of those spins the songwriters are getting paid for? None. Zero. Why isn't anybody concerned about that? I'm concerned about that. There are more independent artists than there are major label artists. There are more independent. I talked to a radio promoter a couple weeks ago down in Texas, and she said that somebody at a radio station in Texas told her that they get between 200 some weeks and 500 new singles from independent artists every week. Now, I started this whole journey in the radio business. I worked for Clear Channel for a very long time. I kept trying to get away from Clear Channel, but everywhere I went, every radio station I went to, they bought the damn thing. So I ended up working, and I actually did go to work for MediaBase. So I understand how all of this tracking and monitoring, I understand all that. I know how it works. So I started out in radio. I know what they're paying. I know what they're playing. I know the game. I know how it works. But I think that is a huge problem. I think when you've got a professional songwriter that either has a publishing deal or does not have a publishing deal, maybe they're representing their own interests. When you get a song cut by an independent artist and that independent artist is going to go out and spend $100,000 trying to work that thing up a completely useless chart like the Music Row chart, you think, oh my God, that thing's climbing. It's going to, as the songwriter, I think I might make some money here. But you're not. Because those radio stations are not monitored. They are still back, talk about old days. They are still like literally writing down the number of times they're spinning records and sending that in to Music Row. Same thing with New Music Weekly and all the other bullshit small charts and all that other. All that is designed, and they prey on the perception factor of independent artists. You can see your name right here on this chart, regardless of the fact that it doesn't mean a damn thing for anybody. Doesn't mean anything for the publishers, doesn't mean anything for the songwriters, and it really doesn't mean anything for the artists. But if you want to talk about ways that we can affect and increase and better the bottom line for songwriters, how about starting there? How about starting with this general statement and rule of thumb that if you have an FCC license, you will pay for every spin on every station. Now, the way that that's done is there is a weighted system to where a spin in Los Angeles is weighted a lot heavier than a spin in Little Rock, Arkansas. And that's all based on population. The more something is exposed to a larger audience, the more they're going to have to pay. The smaller the audience, the less the money. I'm fine with that situation. But when you get down to some of these smaller stations that service areas, you know, with 20,000 people or less, which, by the way, folks, is like 85% of America. That's the problem. Is that there are more small stations than there are large stations, right? So that's fine that we have a weighted system and a structure. But if you own a radio station, an FM, AM, whatever station, you have an FCC license, and you broadcast to 5,000 people in your town, if you're playing a song that I wrote, I better be getting paid. And right now, we're not. We are not. You would be shocked and surprised. I have gotten into this, guys. I have researched this. I've looked into it. I have looked at songs that I've had out on the charts versus the stations that they were playing on versus the amount of money that I got. It don't add up. It does not add up. How about we fix that problem? Because, see, that's specific. That's not general. That is very specific. You can get down to the minutest point and see that you had a song on the charts. It was on the charts because it was being played on this amount of stations and this amount of spins per each station, and you can literally see how much that breaks down into per station. But you can also see that you aren't getting paid, in the most part, for songs that are playing on 85% of the radio stations in the country. Just to be honest with you, the real money for songwriting and publishing kicks in when you hit the top 20. Well, maybe now the top 40 because there's so many countdown shows that are syndicated and things like that. You actually get those more impressions. But the difference between a song that caps out at number 17 on Billboard and a song that goes to number 1 is hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, if there's that much difference between number 17 and number 1, how a song gets from number 17 to number 1 are that the major market stations start picking them up. Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Miami, Atlanta. I know I'm forgetting them. Houston, and I'm forgetting some. San Francisco, all your major market radio stations. When they pick up a song and they start playing it, that's when the real revenue for songwriters and publishers starts to kick in. Before that, yeah, you're going to make some money. But if you're a songwriter with a publishing deal, you're not going to make anything. If you're a songwriter with a publishing deal, and unfortunately, you did whatever you had to do to get the deal just so you could have a deal, and you've signed over 100% of your publisher side, and all you're getting is your writer side, you're not getting anything. There's just not enough to go around. And I also think that that's a problem with where we're heading with this legislation. There's just not enough to go around with the rates that are in place right now. So I'm all for making things better. I would love for things to get better. My kids would love for things to get better. And look, guys, I'm not complaining. I have a great life. I have great business partners. I have great people that I'm involved with. And they have been with me for a long time. But I also knew that it was going to take going above and beyond songwriting. And I think that so many of us, as songwriters, maybe a lot of you don't have those other opportunities. I got into producing records. There's something else in this legislation that's supposed to provide a royalty stipulation for producers and mixing engineers. I'm going to create some enemies here. But there's a reason we don't have an artist royalty. I think when you start getting into giving producers and engineers royalties, I think you creep closer and closer into getting and starting to pay artist royalties. I will say, though, that you know, United States is one of the only countries that doesn't have that. But the artists also participate in so many other revenue streams that the songwriters don't. But oftentimes, I can understand even the engineer more than I can the producer, because the producer is going to have points on the record. So the producer directly benefits when every record is sold. Why give them a royalty on top of it? I know that as a producer, we all like making more money because I am for profit. But I also don't think that we need to look at that very hard, because that almost seems like people are starting to double and triple dip. Producers are already getting points, or they already got paid to produce the record. I don't understand why they should receive a royalty on top of that. Engineers, I see that more than I do producers. But that's just one of the things that are in there. Guys, I have a lot of other ideas I think that would impact and would actually help songwriters more. Something I put in a post last week was, I think, one of the first steps that we've got to get to and we've got to realize is we've got to stop promoting this idea from within the music industry itself that our product doesn't have value. We do that every day. The industry does it every day. I cannot tell you the number of times that I've been approached. Hey, we really want to cut this song. Is there any publishing available on it? That tells me that you don't value it enough. Or we've cut this song and we want to go manufacture product. We want to offer a discounted rate on mechanicals, a 3/4 rate or a quarter rate. That to me shows that the people, the powers that be, do not value the product. They don't value the work that we are creating. So when you ask me to be happy with a collective made up of these people that already don't value our product, that makes me nervous. That makes me nervous about the deals that they will be willing to strike with the digital service providers. And if the digital service providers are 100% on board with this, then it scares me, because it makes me think, the first thing I think is that they know they can have their way with this collective. But at the end of the day, the thing I don't understand is all of the PROs, all of the publishers, we all act so powerless in this situation. What would happen if Sony, Warner Brothers, Universal, what if they all got together and with affiliated publishing companies, if everybody went to Spotify and Apple Music and said, guess what? Here's the new fair market rate for usage for our songwriters and our publishers. And if you don't meet it, we're pulling all of our content. Think that would ever happen? No, because it already did. And the record labels made very good deals with the streaming companies for master usage. Songwriters aren't sharing any of that. A couple months ago, you may have seen things come out about Sony, and they're going to start sharing those profits that come in. I have yet, and I have friends that write for Sony. I have friends that are artists on Sony. I have yet to talk to any of my friends that write for Sony that have seen that has had anybody explain to them how they're going to benefit more. It's a great thing to put out there that we're going to start sharing it, but I haven't talked to one single person yet that's benefited from it. And until somebody shows me or tells me different firsthand, then I operate under the assumption that it's not really going to benefit or help anybody. But that's what I wanted to talk about tonight, guys. It got to a point where I was on Facebook and on social media and seeing so many people have such striking belief systems when it comes to this legislation. So many of the incorrect facts and misleading statements that are being put out about SESAC. I just wanted to jump on tonight, and if you felt comfortable, give you a platform to come on and talk about it, or to leave a comment, or to ask a question, because I think it is so important that that even the people that I disagree with right now, I do believe that they have the best interest of songwriters at heart. I do believe that they want things to get better for songwriters. I do believe that they want pay to increase for songwriters. I do believe that they want streaming companies and streaming platforms to have to pay more, and that money should not go to the record labels. It should come down to the songwriters, the creator, the composer. The guy, it all starts with a song. Maybe it used to, but we have devalued that song so much, and the people that we have put in positions to fight for us. I'm not saying they haven't fought. I'm just saying they haven't accomplished anything. And these are the people that you want to put in this collective, that all of a sudden, now I'm supposed to believe that you can get something done. Look, I appreciate the fight. I appreciate anybody who gets up every day, like Bart Herbson and everybody at NSAI. I appreciate that they get up and they fight. But I'm also a results person. And we've been griping, moaning, and bitching and complaining about the way things are for 15 years. Longer, but really since streaming really started coming on and songwriters realized that we're not getting paid. The artists are getting paid, the record labels are getting paid, everybody's getting paid. But the songwriters, us, and now we're the selfish ones. Isn't that strange? I just want the people that are supposed to fight for us to win a battle every now and then. And my issue is with this bill and this legislation, I don't think it's the battle we want to win. We need to win the war. And maybe we need a bigger force. Maybe we need to be asking for more. But I don't think, as it's proposed right now, that it's enough. So, like I said, I think a lot of people are afraid to make comments. I swear to God I won't tear anybody's head off. I can't. I'm physically here. I can't reach you. But I hope you guys, if nobody has anything they want to say, nobody has any comments they want to make, then I'll end it here and go eat dinner because I'm getting hungry. But I hope you guys inform yourself. Go read the legislation. Go read the opposed amendment from SESAC for yourself. If you don't understand it, reach out to somebody that does. Don't just look to people that you think are popular. Don't just look to people that you think know what they're talking about. Guys, get it straight from the source. Call SESAC. Ask them. I talked to Shannon this morning, and I felt sorry for her because they are getting beat up over there, guys, and they are good people. The guys at SESAC, Shannon, they, just like Bart, wake up every day and fight for rights of songwriters. They are a performing rights organization. They're no different than BMI or ASCAP. The people at BMI are not better than the people at SESAC. The people at ASCAP are not better than the people at SESAC, or they don't care more. I could tell you from talking to her this morning on the phone, she cares every bit as much, Lee Thomas Miller. She cares just as much as Bart Herbson. She cares just as much about all of the songwriters as any of those other people. To think otherwise comes from a situation of being informed and ignorant. Just quite honestly. I would like to see people, here's something else I want to do. I have seen all of the posts on Instagram. I can pop it up right now, and I guarantee I won't have to look far to see it because it's just been flooded everywhere with I'm a songwriter, I'm a publisher. Here it is. Here's one. I am a publisher. I support the Music Modernization Act as is. Don't be complacent. Take action. Tell SESAC and Blackstone to withdraw their amendment to the MMA. I see these everywhere I turn. You know what I don't see a lot of? I don't see a lot of SESAC writers out there putting up posts showing your support. And that doesn't have anything to do with not supporting it. It's because you don't want to look unpopular. You don't want to have a dissenting opinion. So if anything, I call on all of my SESAC brothers and sisters. If you disagree, make it public. If you agree, make it public. And I think if you agree, it's even more important now than it ever has been. Show your support. They need to hear your support. They are getting beat up over there, and they don't deserve it. Maybe Blackstone deserves it. If you want to direct your anger over there, that's fine. But please stop bombarding Shannon and the awesome people at SESAC, which nobody had a problem with last Thursday. The one thing I've always heard about and been told about Shannon Hatch is that she is the best best friend a songwriter can have. I've heard that from multiple people. I've heard that from people that are encouraging you to call SESAC and complain. Shannon is the same person today that she was last Thursday, okay? There are real people involved here, and I understand that we've got differing opinions, we've got different points of view. My only ask is that you educate yourself on the facts so that you know what you're talking about, and you're not just regurgitating a statement that you've seen from a songwriter that you think knows what he's talking about. Because if anything, on social media the last week, I've seen nothing but songwriters that should know what they're talking about that don't. That's my point. The people over at SESAC are good people. They are not out to destroy songwriters. Do they have their own best interest at heart? Absolutely. But I'm a SESAC writer, and I hope that by them looking out for their best interests means they're looking out for mine too. And I'm fine with that. So, in a discussion that needs to be had, and in an arena where there are so many different points of view, I just ask that people remember that there are people involved in this. There are good people. The people at SESAC are good people. They are owned by a larger corporation. If you have a problem, Direct your angst to the larger corporation, not the people here in Nashville or out in Los Angeles that wake up every day and their job is to try to help the songwriters sign to their organization. They didn't stop doing that last week, guys. But many of you are treating them like they are now the enemy. They are not the enemy. And we also can't make enemies of each other. And I see a lot of that going on as well. How are we supposed to accomplish anything if nobody can agree on anything? And the compromise that does happen, and the compromise that does come together, is a product that is not a big enough step forward. I just think we deserve more. I think we deserve better. So maybe we'll end things here, guys. I was hoping some of you guys would want to call in, or you guys would want to make comments or whatever, and we could kind of get into a healthy debate or discussion, but you guys have been more than happy to let me talk about it, which is fine. I'm totally up for that. Like I said, I was in radio for 12 years. I can sit behind this microphone and talk, and I can do it well. But I wanted to get on tonight because this is very important. If you are a songwriter, if you want to become a songwriter, you need to know what's at stake. And I hope that you've learned a little bit tonight. Look, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, I don't know everything. I know what I've read the legislation. I've read SESAC's proposed amendment. I have read all the articles that I can find. I have read everything that people are saying about this legislation and about this situation. And the two major things that stick out to me are, one, they all agree that it's imperfect, and two, that it is a small step forward. That's the consensus of everybody. And I don't think it's enough. I just don't think it's enough. Guys, thank you so much for logging on, watching the live stream tonight. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. You can hit the subscription button down there, and also hit the bell notification next to it so that you're notified whenever I upload new stuff or go live like tonight. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. I hope to see you on social media talking about it. If you don't know, go find out. Know what you don't know. It's your responsibility as a songwriter to know what's going on. So I hope that you will. Guys, thanks so much. I hope you have a great rest of the week and a great weekend coming up. I hope we see some resolution to this problem. And I hope that no matter what happens, I hope that things get better for us songwriters. Because I, too, want this profession, should one of my kids want to go into it, I really do want to be able to look at them and go, it's absolutely 100% viable, and it's absolutely 100% worth it. Because where we stand right now today, if you want to come to town and be a songwriter, just a songwriter, you better start filling out applications at Lowe's and Home Depot and everywhere else, because it just ain't going to happen under the way that it is. And I don't think it's going to happen under the way that it might be under the new legislation. Guys, until next time, hope you have a great week. And like I say at the end of all my videos, there's nothing wrong with being independent, guys. Have your own brain, have your own thoughts, and find the facts out for yourself. Guys, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight, and I hope to see you next time when we start doing these things live and regular every week. Again, thank you guys. Have a great Tuesday night.
Ain't nobody safe anymore.